You think you understand emptiness. You do not. You have constructed a model inside your brain, a dark room, a box with the lights off, a stretch of space between stars where nothing moves and nothing breathes and nothing exists. You have taken the concept of absence and filed it neatly into a cognitive drawer labeled void. You believe in this drawer. You have believed in it since you were first conscious enough to fear the dark. That drawer is incorrect. That drawer is a neurological artifact, a sensory hallucination generated by a biological system that evolved to process medium-scale matter at medium-scale velocities. Your brain was not built to process the quantum substrate of space-time. It was built to find food and avoid predators. Its model of emptiness is, clinically speaking, garbage. Let us be precise. Let us be surgical. True nothingness, a state of absolute zero energy, absolute zero field activity, absolute zero fluctuation, is not merely absent from our observable universe, it is mathematically forbidden. It is a configuration of reality that the laws of physics themselves prohibit. Not unlikely, not rare, forbidden. The same way division by zero is not a very small number, but an undefined operation, true nothingness is not a very empty space. It is a physical state that cannot be permitted to exist. This is not philosophy. This is not metaphysics. This is the result of a century of experimental confirmation and theoretical derivation. The void is a lie. It has always been a lie. And the moment you understand why, you will begin to understand that the universe has never, not once, in all of its history, in all of the history before its history, been allowed to rest. Let us begin the autopsy. In 1927, Werner Heisenberg published a relationship so ruthless that it permanently severed our intuitive understanding of reality from the actual mechanics of reality, the uncertainty principle. Its formal statement is clinical. The more precisely you know the position of a particle, the less precisely you can know its momentum. But the deeper implication, the one that rewrites cosmology, is this: you cannot simultaneously know both the energy state of a system and the precise moment in time at which that energy state exists. Read that again. Let it settle. This is not a limitation of our instruments. This is not a problem that better technology will eventually solve. This is a fundamental, irreducible property of the universe's architecture. Energy and time are conjugate variables. They are entangled at the foundational level of existence. And what this means, in clinical terms, is that any region of space, any region, no matter how perfectly evacuated, no matter how cold, no matter how isolated, cannot possess a precisely defined energy of zero for a precisely defined duration of time. Because if it did, we would know two things simultaneously: the energy value and the time. And the universe does not allow that. The mathematics prohibits it. The equations return a contradiction. So what happens instead? Energy fluctuates in the vacuum, in empty space. Energy churns and boils at the Planck scale, at distances so small that our best particle accelerators are geological instruments by comparison. This churning is not metaphorical, it is physical, it is measurable, it has been measured. The Casimir effect, the demonstrable, reproducible phenomenon in which two uncharged metal plates, placed nanometers apart in a vacuum, are pushed together by the pressure of quantum fluctuations, is not a theoretical prediction, it is a laboratory result. The vacuum pushes back because the vacuum is not empty. The vacuum is quantum foam. At the Planck scale, space-time itself, the fabric, the substrate, the medium through which all matter and energy propagates, is not smooth. It is turbulent, it is frothing, it is a roiling, seething, violently active medium in which virtual particle pairs, matter and antimatter, photons and antiphotons,
Quarks and antiquarks are constantly relentlessly tearing themselves into temporary existence. They borrow energy from the vacuum's fluctuation budget. They exist for a duration so brief it defies every biological intuition about the word exist, and then they annihilate each other and return the borrowed energy to the foam. This is happening right now, in the space between your eyes and this page, in the space between atoms in your hand, in the space between galaxies a billion light-years away. There is no such thing as a quiet region of the quantum vacuum. There is only variance in the intensity of the boiling. To maintain true nothingness, to hold a region of space at precisely zero energy for precisely defined time would require infinite energy. You would have to continuously, actively suppress every fluctuation. You would have to police every virtual pair, prevent every quantum whisper, flatten every topological ripple in the space-time substrate. The energy cost of maintaining true emptiness is infinite, and since no physical system possesses infinite energy, true emptiness cannot be maintained, cannot be created, cannot exist. The void is not just a lie, it is an infinitely expensive lie that the universe cannot afford to tell.
From instability, a corollary follows with the mechanical certainty of a logical proof. If nothingness is unstable, if every attempt at true vacuum is immediately and perpetually undermined by quantum fluctuation, then nothingness will always, given sufficient time, decay into something. Not might, not tends to, will, with probability approaching unity, with the same cold inevitability as radioactive decay, as entropy, as the statistical mechanics of any system displaced from equilibrium. Apply this to the origin of our universe. Strip away the theological scaffolding, remove the mythology, remove the narrative of a singular intentional ignition. What remains is a forensic picture, a quantum state of extreme low entropy density, a singularity, if we permit the term to survive scrutiny, that was inherently, constitutionally unstable and that decayed. The Big Bang was not a miracle. The Big Bang was a phase transition. It was the quantum vacuum snapping from one configuration to another, the way a supercooled liquid will suddenly violently crystallize when disturbed. The singularity was a metastable state, a false vacuum, a configuration of space-time that could persist for some duration, but was always, structurally, already collapsing toward a lower energy state, toward expansion, toward the production of matter and radiation and space-time curvature. What we call the beginning was, in quantum mechanical terms, simply the moment the fluctuation crossed the threshold, the moment the borrowed energy was large enough to produce a bubble of space-time that could sustain itself, that could expand faster than it could collapse, a bubble that could grow, a bubble that became, over 13.8 billion years, everything you have ever experienced or imagined or feared. Not a gift, not a design, a statistical inevitability. The tension snapped, the foam produced a viable fluctuation. The fluctuation survived. We are the result. Now we must move the timeline, not forward, back. Further back than the Big Bang, into the question that physics spent decades insisting was meaningless. What existed before? To answer it, we must first go forward. We must look at where our universe is going, because where it is going tells us precisely what it was born from. Our universe is expanding, not just moving outward, but accelerating outward, driven by a cosmological constant, dark energy, that we can measure and cannot explain. Every galaxy cluster is receding from every other. The large-scale structure of the cosmos is being stretched, thinned, diluted. Over timescales that make human civilization look like a rounding error, we are speaking of 10 to the power of 100 years, a duration that makes the current age of the universe appear as a single Planck moment. The following sequence will execute with thermodynamic precision. First, star formation will cease. The raw material, the cold molecular gas clouds, the primordial hydrogen reservoirs will be exhausted. The galaxies will go dark, one stellar generation at a time. until the last dim red dwarf gutters across a universe that has already forgotten what light looked like. Second, gravitational dynamics will dismantle what remains. Over timescales of 10 to the 37th years, quantum tunneling will cause protons themselves, the stable building blocks of all atomic matter, to decay. Every atom of carbon, iron, oxygen, silicon, every molecule in every frozen remnant of every world that ever orbited any star will dissolve into radiation and leptons. Matter, as we define it, will cease to exist. What remains are black holes, supermassive, stellar remnant, and intermediate black holes, the last gravitational anchors in an otherwise structureless cosmos. And even these will die. Hawking's 1974 derivation of black hole evaporation is the terminal diagnosis. Every black hole radiates thermally, leaking energy in the form of Hawking radiation, slowly, monotonically losing mass until the last Planck scale remnant vanishes in a final burst of gamma radiation. The last black hole, in a universe of sufficient mass, will evaporate on a timescale of approximately 10 to the power of 100 years. After that event, there is nothing left but an infinitely thin, infinitely cold, infinitely diffuse bath of low-energy photons and neutrinos expanding into a space-time that grows larger with every passing moment. This is the heat death, thermodynamic equilibrium, maximum entropy. The universe has used up all of its available energy gradients. Every hot spot has equalized with every cold spot. There is no more work to be done, no more structure to build, no more complexity to sustain. This is the corpse of the previous universe, and it is from exactly this corpse that we were born.
This is where Roger Penrose's analysis performs its most disturbing incision. To understand conformal cyclic cosmology, you must first accept a counterintuitive but mathematically rigorous consequence of post-heat death physics. In the final state of the universe, when all matter has decayed, when all black holes have evaporated, when only massless radiation remains, the fabric of space-time undergoes a fundamental transformation, not metaphorically, physically, geometrically. Mass is not incidental to the structure of space-time. Mass is what gives space-time its metric, its capacity to measure distance and duration. Massive particles have rest frames. They tick, they age. They define the passage of time by their very existence. A clock is, at its most fundamental level, a massive system undergoing periodic internal change. Without mass, there are no clocks. Without clocks, there is no measurable time. Furthermore, without mass, there is no meaningful scale. Distance in general relativity is not an absolute quantity. It is defined relative to the metric of space-time, and that metric is sourced by the distribution of mass and energy. In a universe containing only massless photons, particles that travel at the speed of light and therefore, in their own frame, experience zero proper time between emission and absorption, the concept of spatial distance becomes geometrically undefined. The universe has no internal ruler. Penrose's critical insight is this: conformal geometry, the mathematics of angles and shapes divorced from any notion of absolute scale, is the only geometry that survives into the post-heat death state. And in conformal geometry, a universe that is infinitely large and infinitely cold and infinitely diffuse is geometrically, mathematically, conformally identical to a universe that is infinitely small and infinitely hot and infinitely dense. The infinite expansion maps conformally onto a singularity. The heat death of the previous universe and the Big Bang of our universe are not separated by time. They're not separated by space. They are not separated by any physical interval whatsoever. They are the same geometric state,
described from two sides of a conformal transformation. The corpse and the embryo are the same object.
Let that finding sit in its full clinical weight. There was no gap. There was no void between the death of the previous universe and the birth of ours. There was no dark interval, no waiting room, no quantum foam of pre-existence patiently generating a fluctuation. The transition was instantaneous, not because something happened quickly, but because without mass, without clocks, without any physical system capable of measuring duration, the concept of time passing between the two states is undefined. It does not apply. The mathematics of the transition contains no time coordinate that measures the interval, because there is no interval to measure. The heat death did not precede the Big Bang. It was the Big Bang. The last photon of the dying universe was, conformally, the first photon of the born one. The boundary between the cosmic eon, Penrose's term for a single cycle of this engine, is not a moment in time. It is a geometric surface, a conformal boundary across which the macroscopic recycling occurs. Consider what this means for the forensic reconstruction of our origins. Our universe did not arise from nothing. The quantum fluctuation that produced our Big Bang was not a fluctuation in a pre-cosmic void. It was a fluctuation in the conformal geometry of a dead universe, a universe that was itself born from the death of the one before it. The quantum foam that generated our existence was the quantum foam of our predecessor's final state. Our substrate is their corpse. Our energy is their Hawking radiation. Our space-time is the conformal continuation of their space-time. This is macroscopic recycling, not metaphorical, not allegorical, geometric and thermodynamic. The universe consumes its own dead to produce its living. The ashes are the fuel. The corpse is the womb. There is no creation ex nihilo. There is only transformation. There is only the cold, endless mechanical rearrangement of the same conformal geometry, cycling through states that we, trapped inside one brief luminous interval, call beginnings and endings.
We are not special. This diagnosis must be stated without softening. Our universe, 13.8 billion years old, containing 2 trillion observable galaxies, hosting at minimum hundreds of billions of stellar systems capable of supporting chemical complexity, having produced on at least one unremarkable rocky world orbiting an unremarkable G-type star, organisms capable of constructing particle accelerators and writing equations about their own origins, is not a singular event. It is not a first attempt. It is not an experiment. It is an iteration, one cycle in an engine that has been running, by definition, forever. An engine that will continue running, by definition, forever. An engine that has no operator, no purpose, no memory of its previous configurations, and no awareness of its current one. Every universe before ours went through the same sequence: inflation, structure formation, stellar ignition, the slow exhaustion of fuel, the dimming, the decay of matter, the evaporation of the last black holes, the final diffusion into a cold, dark, maximally entropic bath of radiation, and then, conformally, instantaneously, without any physical gap, the birth of the next cycle. The universes before ours did not know we were coming. They had no mechanism by which to record their own existence or transmit that record across the conformal boundary. The Hawking radiation that evaporates from black holes is, in general, thermal, meaning it carries no information about what formed the black hole, no encoded history of the structures that lived and died inside it. Each conformal eon begins, in thermodynamic terms, fresh. The low-entropy initial state of each Big Bang is not contaminated by the high-entropy state of its predecessor. The recycling is clean. The machine erases its own memory with every cycle.
This means that every conscious entity that has ever existed in every previous universe has been erased without residue. Every civilization, every observation, every equation written by every intelligence that arose in any previous eon, gone. Not archived, not transformed, not conserved in any meaningful sense. Erased. The conformal boundary is not a bridge, it is an obliteration surface dressed as a birth canal. We exist in ignorance of our predecessors not because the information was hidden from us, but because it was destroyed. And our successors, the intelligences that will arise, statistically, in the cosmic eons that follow ours, will exist in identical ignorance of us. We will be as absent from their understanding of their origins as every previous universe is absent from ours. There is no grand ledger, there is no accumulated wisdom of the cosmos. There is only the engine running. There is only the cycle executing. There is only the blind mechanical repetition of birth and death and birth at the largest possible scale, driven by mathematical law, sustained by the fundamental instability of the void, powered by its own exhaust. If you are searching for meaning in this architecture, your search will return null. The engine does not produce meaning, it produces structure. Structure that briefly complexifies, briefly generates local reductions in entropy that we call life and intelligence and history, and then disperses. The dispersal is always the final state. The complexity is always temporary. The engine is always running. This is the eternal autopsy. Every universe examined post-mortem yields the same finding. Died of thermodynamics, immediately recycled, left no will, left no message, left only the conformal geometry to be reused. Now we arrive at our own position in the sequence. We are approximately 13.8 billion years into our eon. The universe is in what cosmologists call its stelliferous era, its period of active star formation and stellar luminosity. It is, thermodynamically, the brightest interval in the life cycle of a cosmic eon. The period of maximum available energy gradients, the period of maximum complexity. We are living in the brief, violent, luminous middle of a cycle that began in a conformal echo of a dead predecessor and will end in a conformal blueprint for a living successor. Our stars have lifespans. The Sun has approximately 5 billion years remaining on its main sequence. The last red dwarf stars will burn for approximately 10 trillion years, 1,000 times the current age of the universe. After that, darkness. After the darkness, the long decay of matter over timescales of 10 to the 37th years. After the matter decay, the black hole era, a cold, black, silent cosmos punctuated only by the occasional gamma burst of an evaporating singularity. After the last black hole evaporates, the final state, photons, neutrinos, expanding, cooling, diffusing, approaching, but never quite reaching thermal equilibrium. And then, the conformal boundary, the geometric identity between the infinitely large and the infinitely small, the instantaneous, clockless transition from one eon to the next. Our heat death will not be witnessed. There will be no observer present to record it because the physical conditions required for an observer, mass, energy gradients, chemical complexity, thermodynamic disequilibrium, will have ceased to exist long before the final boundary is reached. The transition will occur without ceremony, without witness, without record. The universe will not know it is dying. The next universe will not know it was born from a corpse.
Every photon you have ever seen, sunlight, starlight, the glow of a screen, the flash of a synapse, is borrowed energy. Energy that belongs to a thermodynamic budget that is being inexorably drawn down. Every star that burns is accelerating the final accounting. Every black hole that forms is storing entropy for later release. Every decay event, every chemical reaction, every biological process is a step in the irreversible march toward the conformal boundary of our eon.
You are made of the recycled Hawking radiation of a dead universe's black holes. You are a temporary reduction in entropy in the middle of a thermodynamic process you did not choose and cannot escape. Your consciousness, the thing that reads these words and generates the sensation of understanding, is a local fluctuation in a system that will return to equilibrium. The fluctuation is real, the understanding is real, and neither of them will survive the accounting. The cycle does not care. The engine does not observe. The conformal geometry does not distinguish between a universe that produced intelligence and one that did not, because all mass decays, all black holes evaporate, and the final state is thermally identical, regardless of what complexity arose during the luminous interval. The machine accepts all configurations with equal indifference. Our eon will end. The boundary will be crossed. A new universe, violent, hot, expanding, confused, will bloom from the conformal echo of our death. It will last for its own billions upon billions of years. It will produce, or it will not produce, its own forms of complexity. It will reach its own heat death. It will contribute its own geometric imprint to the next conformal boundary, and the machine will run. There is no terminal state. There is no final rest. There is no configuration of the universe in which the quantum foam ceases, in which the conformal cycling stops, in which the mathematical structure of existence is permitted to simply cease and remain ceased. The instability of the void guarantees activity. The geometry of the conformal boundary guarantees recycling. The thermodynamics of entropy guarantees the cycle's directionality. There is no exit. The universe will not let the void sleep. It has never let the void sleep. It will never let the void sleep. The silence you imagine when you imagine nothing, that silence has never existed and will never exist, and is not, in any physically meaningful sense, available as an option. The void is forbidden. The machine runs. The cycle continues. That is the finding.